I'm just sitting here recording and not realizing it. Okay. Welcome back to the fucking ridiculous podcast. Guess what? It is episode 43. 43. And I'm going to say I'm kind of proud of myself right now because if you had told me that I'd be doing this a year ago, I would have told you that you were insane and that there was no fucking way that was ever going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and give my own self a shout out and say, way to go, Nicole, for sticking to something. Even though this hasn't been what I would call easy, it has been awesome. It has been fun. It has been challenging. It has been humiliating and demoralizing and everything in between. But I'm super pumped that I did it. So thanks to all of you for watching, listening, subscribing, following, commenting, sharing, everything that you've done to support it, because I literally started this with no expectations. And so anything is better than nothing. And that's what I'm going to go with. Anything is better than nothing is not the quote of the week, however, because I just don't feel like that's quite uplifting enough. So I'm going to go with the quote of the week this week is, do something that you haven't done in a while because odds are you forgot how much you love doing it. So do something you forgot you loved to do. I say this because this week, I told myself, okay, beginning of May, as I always do, it's a Monday, it's the first of the month, it's, whatever month it is, and now I've got to try and lose weight and tone this, badonk up, and I'm going to be in the bathing suit soon, and I don't have a long enough torso to wear a one piece that properly. So anyway, for whatever reason, I told myself, okay, I'm cleared, I can get back in the pool and I can start swimming. Now, I can't tell you how many people in this world that I talk to, and they're like, oh, I hate swimming. Swimming sucks. Swimming, blah, 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 blah. I am not one of those people. I love to swim. I love to swim in the ocean. I love to swim in a pool. I love to swim. And I forget how much I love swimming until I do it again. And it has been a really long time since I've been in the pool because of my shoulder. And so it didn't seem worth it to drive to the pool, get in the pool, get all wet, get out, be cold, rinse off, dry off, get your clothes back on, and then drive home. It just felt like a lot to do in the colder months. So anyway, for the first time in many, many months, dare I even say a year, I got in the pool and swam. And I forget how much I love swimming. And I love it because, number one, it's like a total body workout, but you don't really feel like you're working out. Number two, you are sweating, but you're sweating in the pool, so you don't know you're sweating. And as a sweater, that is important because at least it's hiding the sweat. And if the sweat smells, then I'm not smelling it. I'm only smelling chlorine, The third reason I love it, and this is probably the biggest reason, is that when you're in the pool, it's quiet and there's that water sound. And swimming is very methodical and rhythmic, and you kind of get into a flow of things and then you just keep going and going. It's kind of like that same feeling for runners, but I feel like in the pool, there's less to distract you. So you're just in your thoughts. And so I do a lot of my deep thinking, solving all the problems in the world when I'm underwater. And I do believe that in previous past lives, I was like a dolphin or a whale or some kind of water creature that was not mean, because I feel so at home in the water. It literally is one of those things that heals everything. So all of that being said, I got out of that pool and was like, oh my gosh, I love to swim. And I don't know why I don't do this more often. And then I get annoyed with myself because I'm like, this is something I love to do. And it's not that hard. And I just forget to do it. And then I can convince myself 9 times out of 10, oh, that's a bad idea for this or this or this. So anyway, quote of the week, do something that you used to love and maybe you forgot that you love it. And that could also be a person. I don't know. You go ahead and be you, do you. But that's where I am right now. So it's May. It's May, and this is the month that I like to refer to as the absolute busiest month of the year. Anyone who has school-aged children. And that would go from basically preschool to the master's, maybe even PhD, doctorate level. Anyone with children that are school-aged, May is the craziest month because it's always going to be the end of something. It's always going to be a wrap-up. Every single activity, person, event, it requires like new clothing or different clothing because the weather's changed and now it's hot but not today because it's super fucking cold in Richmond, even though it's May 3rd. Shout outs. Special shout out to my stepmom, Kim Jane. Happy birthday. We could not be happier that you are here with us. And thank you so much for taking care of Big J for us. Shout out number 2, P. Rice. Someone has a birthday tomorrow. So I say happy birthday to you. I love you, love you, love you. You're the baby of the family. And I can't wait to give you some smooches. And the last shout out is to my husband because, and we will get into this later, but Friday, Cinco de Mayo, marks 22 years of me being married to the same person and my husband being married to me. So that right there is like the biggest accomplishment for both of us. More for him, I think, less for me. It's just, that's a really long time. It's a really, really long time. And I know you're thinking that math doesn't work out. Yes, I was married at 10. I know we lived in West Virginia first. I'm just kidding. We didn't. That's not cool. But anyway, 22 years of marriage. So happy anniversary, babe. I'm not a huge anniversary person, but I did want to acknowledge this publicly to give myself some credibility for some of the things I'm going to say later in my tips and experiences in being married for a fuck ton of years. Going backwards, I can't remember what I was gonna say, so I'll just move forward. I'll move forward, not backwards. Just keep moving forward. That's another quote. Just one foot in front of the other. Okay. So we've already covered the quote and the shout outs and the intro. Oh, well, how about this? I'll just do a really quick NHL plug. Stanley Cup playoffs. We're in round 2. Guys, there have been upsets. There are young teams. There are the newest team. There's the newest team in the NHL that's now in the playoffs. I mean, this has everything. If you know who Stefan is, it has everything. It's got competition. It's got rivalry. It's got friendship, leadership, team bonding. It's got violence. It's got laughs. It's got really hot guys. It's got it all. It's got it all. So you should really be watching. Okay. Anyway, back to in the news. In the news, we have had our third bank fall. First Republic Bank fell. And JP Morgan now became the exception to the rule. They are like the golden child in the family because they were allowed to go ahead and take that company, even though they are already too big to be acquiring anymore. They were granted special permission. So there's that. I would like to go on record as saying, I looked up when the FDIC limit of $250,000 per account, when that was created, when that limit was set. And it was set in 2010. So that's 13 years ago, if my math is serving me right. And I do believe with the current interest rates, with the having had the pandemic and coming out of that, I think the world has changed enough and it's been enough time that maybe perhaps we should reconfigure some of those numbers just to make sure that they are representative of what we're dealing with right now in our world. Because right now, if you were to have $250,000 in the bank, that is awesome. That is awesome, and it is safe. Anything other than that is not safe unless it's in another bank account at a different bank. So it feels like kind of counterproductive if you had like a little bit more money than that? Do you move it then? Do you keep it in? It's all very confusing. So I just would like to say, blanket statement, don't know where 250 came from, but maybe if we could get some backup documents on supporting that number, or was it just like, hey, it's 1/4 of a million, and that sounds great too. I'm not saying I have $250,000 laying around. It's just you keep hearing about that, and then everything beyond that is not safe if it's in that same account, which does not inspire a lot of confidence in the banking system if you were to be an excellent saver, if you were to get an inheritance that you didn't know that was coming your way. Anyway, that's enough on that. Moving on. This is very funny to me that 43 years ago, Pablo Escobar, who was the drug lord in South America, he was creating his own private zoo. I mean, I don't know what else you would do with laundered money than, create your own zoo, seeing as you can only have $250,000 in the bank account at one particular bank. So maybe he thought, I'm going to make my own zoo. That's a great use of funds. So regardless, he brings in a handful of hippopotamuses for his private zoo. And so that was 43 years ago. So now the hippopotami, that sounds good. They have multiplied and multiplied. They are fertile. They live very long. They live to be 40 or beyond. They are survivors. They are aggressive. They are territorial, and they don't take shit from anyone. So if you make friends with a hippopotamus, you're going to want them with you should the Hunger Games come, because that's going to be like your wolf dog from like Game of Thrones. That's going to be, that's going to be your pet. At least I would choose that. It's also the second largest, animal on the land. Fun fact, it is also semi-aquatic, which means not fully aquatic, but can swim. Also can be on land. So a couple of other things about the hippopotamus that you need to know about, and the overpopulation that's happening right now is that what they're doing to control the population is they are now having vets come in and castrate the males, which, okay, we spay dogs, we neuter and spay, and we do all that perfect, right? Well, what I didn't know and found out was that, number one, these castrations cost about $17,000 a pop, and they take about 5 hours. So if you are just like in a quandary about what to do with your life and can't find a job, I am going to venture to say that there could be a need for vet tech and vet assistance in the castration of hippopotamuses world. You could look into that, because I don't know how many of those someone would do before they would just kind of wanted to like take a really nice big vacation, because I just feel like you're dealing with a lot of big balls. Big balls. Anyway, so that was funny. So thank you, drug lord Pablo Escobar, for your private zoo and your hippopotamus problem. Like, you didn't cause enough issues in the beginning anyway. So we have talked a little bit about the price of higher ed and how fucking ridiculous college is. It's out of control. It's out of control. I can't say that enough. I can't stress it enough. This story about UC, so University of California, Santa Cruz, which Santa Cruz, even just the name, you're like, oh, that I bet is like the coolest place to live. It'd be so much fun. Well, I agree. I think it sounds awesome. The shitty part is that rents are so high right now in that area and in California, I think in general, because it's already an expensive state to live in, that students are now like competing and vying for trailer park spots because rent in a house with 10 people is $1,000. $1,000 to live with 9 other people. You don't have your own room. I don't know if you're just sharing with one person. My guess is you're not. You're sharing with several. But for $1,000? So now trailer parks are popping up and people are trying to get spots anywhere they can. So if this isn't ridiculous, and I'm not saying that trailers and trailer parks are ridiculous. I am saying that I love the innovation, but how is anyone supposed to go to college, attend college, and live near the college if the college itself is crazy expensive? The living quarters around are crazy expensive. Like, I am even not even in favor of wanting to like give the student debt forget about it. But I'd be willing to like do some student living vouchers. I mean, I don't know. This is fucked up. I can't get it. I am grateful right now that I went to a public college and I was able to live only with 4 other people. And I did have my own bedroom. So I'm going to consider myself like a royal. Like I might as well have been like, Queen Elizabeth. Biden apparently was given several funny jokes about his own age, which I love when you can make fun of yourself. And I think that is very humanizing. So we know what his end game is. Biden wants to run for president again. And he's acknowledging to everyone that he recognizes and knows that he's older than most people running. There is another person who has talked about running, and I'm just not sure what his end game is, because he is suing the most magicalist place in the world. And I don't understand why this is the sword he's going to fall on. And maybe he's not falling. Maybe he's being lifted up as like the Lion King of the most magical place in the world. But I don't know. It just seems like a really bizarre move. If you're messing with the most magical place, that's like messing with Hogwarts, Nothing good is going to come of that. Those wizards are not going to appreciate that. Disney and its world, they're not going to appreciate that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe Floridians know something I don't about that magical place. And if so, let me in on the secret. There is a writer's strike now out in Hollywood. And so a lot of shows are going to be they'll halt production. I do understand where the writers are coming from. GPT is definitely a threat to their jobs, their livelihood, their families. They also aren't getting residuals from streaming platforms and those kinds of agreements. So I get where they're coming from. I do think this will be very interesting in that more reruns will come on. People will have to adapt to like different types of talk shows. I'm considering doing my own. If you would like to come on the show, I can start doing daily podcasts and we can just learn about everything and anything we want to know about, and laugh too. So finally, I read that while insects are a delicacy in certain countries, I don't think I'm going to take part in that type of cuisine. And it is now being promoted in Europe that insects, could be like a great part of your everyday diet. And I think they're trying to market that to kids and families alike. I am all for plant-based diets. I am all for being as healthy as you possibly can. I don't think I can eat anything with the word larvae in it. Or that came from a larvae. So that's just me. You might have a different feeling on this, and maybe chocolate covered anything is actually awesome. And I'm not going to argue at that point. I'm not going to argue with myself about that. So maybe if the insect is covered in dark chocolate, I'm good. So that's win-win. Maybe it's like it's good for me and it's a dessert. But then I kind of feel like, why wouldn't I just eat like a chocolate almond? Or a cashew, or a raisin, because raisins don't belong with chocolate. I mean, that's obvious. Anyway, so that's what's going on in the news right now. On with the segment. So, the car saga has continued, and I promise you, I am not making any of this up. It is straight up comedy. So Black Betty proved to be the winner of all winners in the car contest last week because as you might recall, I drove my husband to the airport last Tuesday, like 4:30 in the morning, no big deal. And so that Black Betty could stay here and Taylor could stay here. Remember, I drive Taylor, Black Betty is my husband's, and then Tina, the Tucson, died. And so I had been borrowing the cars. I borrowed the Lexus, and that was too smart. Then I borrowed the Jeep, way too smart, way too high. I go to pick my husband up from the airport on Friday, and I'm driving around. He gets in the car, and I floor the gas, and we're basically not moving. And then every light on my dashboard, every light lights up. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So to make this long story short, I was like, okay, we're going to take the highway. I'm going to drive right to the auto store and get a new battery. Because clearly this is what the problem was when my older son, we had to jump him at the gas station. It starts to pour rain, and we are 0.5 miles away from the auto store. And she takes her last breath. And that's it. So now it's pouring down rain. Car is kind of like in the middle of a busier street. And so now we're down to just Black Betty. And Black Betty is at my son's school. And now we are stranded. So turns out, this is Friday afternoon, so we have to call the tow truck again, and then we get someone to pick up my husband, and I go with the tow truck, and then we get it towed, and they're like, okay, we'll call you on Monday, and we'll let you know what's going on. So now we have one car for 3 drivers. So I'm like, okay. So I bite the bullet, and I just rent a car. I rented what might be the nicest car I have ever been in my entire life. And I am not saying that I've been in a lot of nice cars, because I have not. Although I have driven a Maserati very fast, and I was very proud of myself for that. But I drove something that basically add 5 more feet to it, and it would have been an 18-wheeler. But I felt very safe. It was super luxurious, and it is definitely not what I'm going to spend my money on as much as I liked it. I will say it also was a huge gas guzzler, because I guess to move that bad boy, you got to feed the beast, and that thing was a beast. So anyway, get rid of the rental, get Taylor back on Tuesday. I've now borrowed cars. I've now rented cars. It's my neighbors are like, oh, is this the new car? No, it's not the new car. Oh, is it? Nope, not the new car. So the latest is I drove a car today, and if everything checks out with it, I will have a used but new to me car, hopefully by tomorrow, named TBD. So that's what's going on in the car world. If you saw anything on my socials, I did document the ridiculousness of everything that happened on Friday. So last week, I told you that we would be talking about competitive parenting, and I lied, because we are not going to talk about competitive parenting this week. We are going to talk about marriage, because I have been married for 22 fucking years, and in those 22 years, I have learned a few nuggets. So I, growing up, was never the person who wanted to be married. I did not dream of getting married. I came from divorced parents. My husband came from divorced parents. I kind of felt like it was more of a fairy tale. I just was very, very skittish about the whole thing. And so my husband likes to tell people that and be like, yeah, that's how she trapped me. She told me that she had no interest in getting married, that she was fine just living together and having kids. And, that's how she just reeled me in. Everything about what he said until just reeled me in was 100% true. I did say those words. I truly felt that way. I just felt like that permanency of marriage was very, very scary. And so we were pretty much opposite on all of it. He wanted the big wedding. I didn't. He was more open to getting married in a church. I did not feel that comfortable. I wanted to be married outside. I would have been fine eloping. He was like, nope. I would like this. And so we ended up having a big wedding, outside. We got married in the garden, and then the reception was inside and outside of the same place, so that you only went one place. Now a lot of people do that, but back then that was not the way it was done. We had someone who was ordained, but we did not have like someone from the XYZ church marry us. We were friends before we got married. And so we met at work, we became friends, we hung out a ton, then we started dating. And I think that that is a great foundation for a lot of relationships, because when you start as friends, you get to know the person in such a different way that it just feels more comfortable sometimes. I'm not saying that for everybody, but that's just for me. And that definitely was the difference, because that was one of the first relationships that I had where I was friends with someone and then started dating them. So we had a reading about friendship, and then we had a reading about love, and then we had a reading about marriage. And the reading about marriage was basically saying, you know, you don't walk in the shadow of one another, you walk together. And so every time I would hear the phrase, you know, oh, when you get married, it's like two becoming one, I was like, oh, I don't like that, because if I'm not a complete person, a whole circle, and he's not a whole circle, how can we be a whole circle together? So it's like, I always, like, here's my diagram. It's a triangle, look. And so I always felt like if I was constantly having to work on myself in order to be a whole partner, if that makes any sense. And so I still feel that way. And that is why I will hold tight to marriage is so hard, because it's hard enough to take care of yourself and try and be whole. Then you're in a relationship with someone else and you're compromising and you're agreeing and you're fighting about lots of different things. And then with every new addition, be it a pet or a child or a plant that comes into your house, it's like a whole new set of rules and learning. And it's a lot. Now, I say all of this because I want to be very true and authentic about my feelings about marriage. I don't take it lightly. I never wanted to be divorced if I had anything to do with it. That being said, I understand, I really do, how marriages don't work out. And lots of times it is better for everybody in that situation, because ultimately you just want the best for the other person and you want them to be happy. At least that's what I think, and that's what I would hope. Here are my tips. If you feel inside like you don't need another person to make you feel good and make you feel loved, that is a huge key to success. The second thing is, ultimately at the end of the day, you want to feel safe with someone. You want to feel like your thoughts and your feelings and your body, that they're safe. The third thing is, any relationship that you go into, you are bringing your emotional backpack with you. And as you have deja vus and you are in situations that either feel super familiar or super foreign and you don't know what to do with them, you will have a coping mechanism that you may or may not realize you have. And once you realize that that's your coping mechanism and how you do things, it will be invaluable information for that other person, because my husband and I deal and cope with things very, very differently. In fact, they're like the opposite. So what I need is the exact opposite of what he needs. And knowing that and being able to like put that out in a conversation is huge. It would have saved us years and years of miscommunication. Show the person that you love them. Figure out, and their love language is always going to stem from one of two things. It's always going to stem from childhood, but it's either going to be the things that they had in their childhood and that they just cannot live without, that the loss of that will make them feel unloved. Or it will be the things that they did not have in their childhood, that once they got a taste of them, they were like, oh my gosh, this actually makes me feel so loved and so. This wasn't exactly the funniest episode. I do have a lot of funny things that have happened in our marriage, but I did just want to take the time to at least say it's okay to be nervous about getting married. It's okay to have doubts about getting married. It's okay to still love the person you're married to and not like them sometimes. All of that is totally normal. And in fact, I think if you don't ever have those moments, that maybe that's the abnormal. I'm not an expert. I'm a work in progress, big time. I don't even know if any of this made sense, but hopefully it did. Just remember, it's going to be fine. It will always look better the next day. You will always get new perspective the next day. and keep your pecker up.